Hey, here I am again. I got another video for you guys. This time I'm going to be talking about Infiltrator septic systems, like the chambers and the septic tanks. So to start off with, when it comes to sizing these systems, I know how to size them because I've actually installed them out in the field. Just remember, when you're selling this stuff, it's not really your job to do that. I highly encourage you to let the customer tell you how many feet they need. Don't, you know, and the reason for that is liability reasons. Because for this stuff to be like correct and legal as far as EPA guidelines and health department guidelines, they need to pull permits and they need to have a PERT test done on their soil. The PERT test will indicate on a sizing chart based off the size of the house how many linear feet of chamber they need. So let the customer tell you. Okay, even if you know how to size it, it's really not our place to do that. So just keep that in mind if it ever comes up. So to start with, every chamber, counts as 4 feet. End caps count as 1 feet. So if you got a guy come up and say that he needs, say, 10 feet of chamber, well, 2 of these and 2 end caps, he's done. That's all you got to do. Because the end caps count as 1. So keep that in mind. It's not necessarily a problem to oversize it. There's better to have more than less, but that does count. That counts in your math. As far as how they look when they're installed, when you're linking your end caps together, I just kind of this is just 2 ways you can do it. You can go straight in to straight in. Those end caps, they have a little knockout spot on the side where you can drill a hole. Your rows are always 9 foot on center. That's how they're designed. And oddly enough, a 10-foot piece of 3-inch foam core is just the right length to reach between the two. It's almost like it's by design. But anyway, so 9 foot on center. You got to have grade between your rows. And you can link them that way, cap to cap. Or, depending on how your fall is, this is kind of a jacked up drawing. It would actually be way more fall than that. But, because you don't want to have too much fall here. But if for some reason, say your actual final grade was real steep, instead of doing straight to straight, you could go piece of pipe and use a street 3-inch 90 to go into the top of that end cap right there. You can do that too. Like I said, if you're fighting like a really extreme grade. But that's just 2 of the many, many ways you can do this. And as far as where you can put your connections on your rows, you can either do it on the end or on the end. And you can even alternate ends. Like say you got several rows, several in a row, you can go end to end to end to end, or you can go straight down on the same end. It doesn't really matter all that much. Or you can go in the center. And you can do that with the end caps that we keep. You can score them and cut them, and they'll still work in the center. They're designed to work that way. So that's pretty handy. And as far as some other things you can do, we actually keep a concrete adapter. That's more or less what it looks like. So if you have somebody with a concrete tank and they want to change to the newer, more modern style lid, they just have to very carefully knock a hole in the tank to fit that in there, and you screw this down onto the tank with I believe Tapcons, I guess is what you would use, and our risers and our lids will actually link up on that. So that's a pretty neat system. I'll sell a few of those every now and then. And on your risers, the Infiltrator risers are meant for the tanks we keep. If you stack multiple risers together, that's kind of how they look. They go out like this, and you put your lid on the top there. That's what the riser system will look like when it's fully assembled. So that's pretty neat how that works. I would assume it's designed this way for strength. And that's kind of what a tank looks like from the inside when it's fully assembled. You got your sewer line coming in here, dumping your waste into the larger part of the chamber. You got your baffle here, which will have the 2 holes knocked out in it. And you got your lid on each side, so you can access your solid side and your black water side, because there should just be nothing but black water in here. I mean, eventually solids will get into it, but it's primarily meant to be black water. And your tank tee, and then sewer line coming out. Now on this tank tee, the one that the system comes with has it's like a red filter that can be removed. Some people leave them in, and some people take them out. Um, Me personally, I usually take them out, but but honestly, don't advise one way or the other on that, because you're supposed to have that. And if you tell somebody, yeah, you can take that out, and they take it out, and then their leach field gets jacked up, well, you're on the hook for that. So, let the professional decide. Again, there's a whole lot of let the pro decide on this kind of stuff. You're just selling the parts. You're not really building a system for them. You're not engineering it. Okay, so be very careful with that. I probably shouldn't even have told you that, but just an FYI thing. I usually don't. They tend to clog up, which that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to clog up. That's their job. You want that to clog up instead of your leach field. So it's a good thing to have, but school's out on that. All right. So this is kind of a really basic example of using a distribution box. The distribution boxes that we keep, the ones with the 20-inch round lid, you can use those for these. For this purpose, you have your sewer line coming in from here. I didn't draw that. And you would just link it to your rows. That is one way you can do this. This kind of stuff can get extremely complicated. You can have some really high-end, highly engineered pressurized systems that is super, super beyond the scope of this. I actually know a guy based out of Monroe that does systems like that, and it's some wild stuff. It's really interesting stuff. But most people's systems aren't going to be that complicated. At most it'll be something like this. So if you're in if your customer's in a situation where they're having to pump the black water to the leach field, always, they need to make sure they put a paver stone. And Infiltrator makes like an adapter that can go into the end cap that's designed for this, but a paver stone works just as good, and they're probably cheaper and much more readily available. And they want to make sure they turn a 90 down to where that water hits that paver, because what will happen is if you don't do that, that pressurized water comes out, kind of hauling butt a little bit. It'll end up digging out the spot right here where it's hitting, and that compromises the leach field. So that's something to keep in mind on pressurized systems if they need that. And speaking of pressurized systems, there's a couple ways they can do it. And honestly, they're about the same money from what my experience. Here's your primary tank. You got your solids and your liquids here, or your black water here, your solid side. And you can link them together, and you can actually use a second 1,000-gallon tank as your pump tank. Here's a sewage pump or a fluent pump. That would actually be an effluent pump, because technically there shouldn't be any sewage in that. There might be some incidental solids, but there shouldn't be much of any in there, and to pump to your leach field. Or if they prefer, you can get a traditional basin, with whatever risers they need, and shoot it out that way. So that's one option. Depending on the situation, they might be better off to use a full tank. They may be better off to go ahead and just get a basin. There's more than one way to skin that cat. It just depends on what they got going on. So that's more or less all I wanted to cover on that. And just to kind of recap, all the information that you would need to make sure the customer gets enough chambers would be on the permit. Okay, you want to, if the customer or a contractor looks at you with a blank face when you say, well, how many feet do you need, and they don't have a permit, well, they need to find out, because you don't want to guess on that. And again, it's not our place to tell them and size the system. It's not our place to do that. For liability reasons, you don't want to do that, because if this stuff gets wrong, health department and EPA, they don't play. Okay, you think working with a permit office is a pain in the butt? Get EPA on your butt. No good. So just be careful. Use your best judgment, like you always do. And there you go. That's about all I have to say about that.